We were all handed like the exact same script at some point, right? Probably right around high school graduation.
Oh, absolutely. The traditional deferred life plan.
Yeah, it's this very simple, super culturally ingrained formula. Deprive yourself today, work as hard as humanly possible, save every single spare penny aggressively.
And then if you follow all the rules, you magically unlock this rich, entirely stress-free life when you finally cross the finish line at age 65.
Exactly. It's supposed to be a guarantee. But then you actually step out into the world today, you start paying rent, you look at the economy, and you realize that script feels like it was written for a completely different reality.
It really does. It offers this comforting illusion of control, right? You endure the pain of extreme frugality in your 20s and 30s because the reward is supposedly guaranteed decades down the line.
Right. But it's fundamentally disconnected from the math sitting right in front of us. I constantly look at that traditional ultra-aggressive saving model and think of it like hoarding all your absolute best Halloween candy as a kid.
Oh, I love that analogy.
You know what I mean? You take the Reese's, the Snickers, all the premium stuff, and you stash it in a shoebox under your bed because you want to save it for later.
Right, and by the time you finally allow yourself to open that box in March, the chocolate has that weird chalky white film on it.
Yes. The peanut butter is essentially just dust. The candy is technically still there, but you completely missed the joy of eating it when it actually tasted good.
You delayed the gratification so long that the gratification actually expired.
Exactly. And that tension between enjoying the candy now versus saving it for a future that might, never actually arrive is exactly what we are unpacking in today's deep dive.
It's a massive cultural shift we're seeing right now.
It really is. And for you listening, we're looking at an incredibly thorough analysis of this new financial phenomenon today. We're drawing on insights from Bree Shalito, she's the Director of Financial Wellbeing at Wings Credit Union, and Michael Benoit, founder of California Contractor Bond and Insurance Services.
Right, and the phenomenon we're dissecting is called soft saving. It's a term that gained some serious cultural traction around 2023.
So our mission today is to look under the hood of this movement, right? We need to figure out what it actually looks like in practice and why people are running away from traditional saving.
And ultimately determine if this is, a brilliant, necessary adaptation for modern mental health or just a sophisticated excuse for financial self-destruction.
Right. So before we put soft saving on trial, we really have to define the terms. And we have to look at the pressure cooker that created it, because soft saving isn't just about emptying your bank account and lighting your money on fire.
No, far from it. Soft saving fundamentally means reprioritizing. It shifts the focus toward current well-being and present-day quality of life.
Instead of treating aggressive future hoarding as the only valid financial goal.
Exactly. The biggest misconception is that soft savers are saving $0. In reality, they are saving just enough.
Wait, what does just enough actually look like, practically?
Well, it means doing things like contributing to a 401k strictly up to the employer match, rather than agonizing over maxing out the entire annual limit.
Okay, so they capture the free money from the match, and then the strategy shifts.
Right. The extra cash left in the paycheck doesn't go into a locked vault for retirement. It goes toward present-day investments.
I mean, that makes sense. That might look like booking solo travel to experience a new culture while you actually still have the energy to walk 10 miles a day.
Or it could be reallocating that budget to pay for out-of-pocket talk therapy. You are establishing a baseline of future stability, but you are actively funding your current comfort.
And the contrast here is huge. I mean, to see why this is such a radical departure, you just have to look at the FIRE movement from a few years ago.
Oh, yeah. Financial independence, retire early.
FIRE was like the ultimate manifestation of the old script. It demanded extreme frugality. People were saving 50, 60, sometimes 70% of their income.
The philosophy was literally to live on rice and beans in your 20s, drive a 20-year-old car, and skip every single vacation.
Yes, so you could theoretically be entirely free from the workforce by your early 40s. Which sounds miserable, to be honest. Soft saving is a direct rejection of that entirely restrictive lifestyle.
And it's not hard to see why. I mean, you listening, you've probably felt this friction yourself.
Oh, for sure. You open a real estate app,
Yeah.
you look at the median home prices in your zip code, you look at your savings account, and you realize the math simply does not bridge the gap anymore.
The numbers in the source material paint a really stark picture here. The macroeconomic reality is brutal right now.
Yeah, lay the math on us. How bad is it?
Well, the median home sale price today is more than 1,000% higher than it was in the 1970s.
1,000%. That's just wild.
And during that same stretch, wage growth has not even come close to keeping pace. I mean, the federal minimum wage has been completely frozen since 2009.
So we are looking at a landscape where basic, non-negotiable necessities, like keeping health insurance active or securing reliable childcare, are so astronomically expensive.
Right. Maintaining a baseline standard of living often requires multiple incomes or side hustles now.
It honestly feels like sitting down to play a game of Monopoly, where the previous generation of players has already been circling the board for 3 hours.
That is a brutally accurate way to put it.
Right. They own Boardwalk, they own Park Place, they have hotels on every single railroad, they hand you the dice and tell you to play by the exact same rules they did.
And you haven't even rolled the dice yet, and you are statistically bankrupt.
Exactly. You can't even afford to land on a property, let alone buy it.
The only strategy left in that Monopoly game is just trying to scrape together enough cash to pay the luxury tax and stay on the board.
Which is why Gen Z and younger millennials have just stopped trying to buy Boardwalk.
Yeah, they watched older millennials do everything society told them to do. That generation took on the student loans, got the degrees, landed the corporate jobs.
Tried to follow the FIRE methods.
Yes, and yet a massive portion of them are still locked out of homeownership or delaying having children because the financial barrier to entry is simply too high.
But look, I have a hard time buying that this shift is purely a rational, calculated response to macroeconomic data.
Oh, you think there's more to it?
Yeah, I mean, part of this trend just feels like a generation that spends way too much time on TikTok, scrolling through endless wellness influencer videos, and just demanding instant gratification.
That's a fair critique.
So prove to me this isn't just financial nihilism dressed up as a mental health break.
Well, the digital environment is absolutely an accelerant. We can't ignore the impact of having unfettered access to the highlight reels of millions of strangers.
Right, because you're constantly bombarded with images of peers on wellness retreats or dining at curated pop-up restaurants.
Or working remotely from a beach in Portugal. And when you see that constantly, the psychological distance between seeing something you desire and pulling out your credit card to get it effectively drops to zero.
So culture currently idolizes flexibility and present-day experiences.
Exactly. So it's a perfect storm. You have an economy that makes long-term goals feel mathematically impossible, combined with a digital culture that makes short-term indulgences look incredibly appealing and completely normal.
That combination creates the exact conditions for soft saving to thrive. The long-term goal of the house or the fully funded retirement feels like a mirage.
It just keeps moving further away.
Right. So people redirect their resources toward the oasis they can actually reach right now, which is their immediate well-being.
Which brings us to the actual tangible benefits of this approach.
Yeah.
Because for the millions of people adopting this mindset, this does not feel like giving up.
No, it feels like waking up. It feels liberating. There's a very real emotional return on investment here.
There really is. Bree Shalito makes a compelling argument in The Source about values-based spending. Soft saving essentially forces a confrontation with your own priorities. Well, it asks you to strip away the societal milestones, like the pressure to be married with a mortgage by age 30, and ask, what actually enriches my life today?
So it fundamentally changes the relationship you have with your paycheck.
Exactly.
Instead of treating your money like a time capsule that you bury in the backyard for 40 years, just, crossing your fingers and hoping the economy hasn't destroyed it by the time you dig it up.
You start treating your money like an active subscription to your own daily well-being.
A subscription to your well-being. I love that. Because the time capsule approach often results in a very specific modern tragedy. The burned-out retiree.
Oh, it's heartbreaking. We see an entire demographic of people who successfully followed the script. They traded their physical prime, their cartilage, their mental peace for future wealth.
They worked decades of 60-hour weeks.
Yes. But by the time they unlock that time capsule at age 65 or 70, their health has deteriorated.
Right. They are too physically exhausted or medically compromised to actually travel or enjoy the wealth they spent half a century building.
Soft saving stares that tragedy in the face and recognizes a harsh truth. Now is the only time that is mathematically guaranteed to you.
Wow. Yeah, that's powerful. And Gen Z is aggressively choosing their current mental health over relentless grinding work.
And when you remove the guilt associated with spending on life's smaller comforts, whether that means updating a mattress so you stop waking up with back pain or paying for a weekly yoga class, the improvements in daily well-being are immediate.
You stop merely surviving until Friday or surviving until retirement. You actually inhabit your life.
Finances transform from this arbitrary scoreboard of accumulated assets into a highly practical tool for constructing a sustainable life today.
Okay, and hate to play devil's advocate here, if the mistake of the FIRE movement was working too hard for a future that arrived too late, the danger of pure soft saving is ignoring the future entirely.
That is the big risk, yes. The math doesn't care about our feelings or our mental health journeys.
Right. If we swing the pendulum all the way from extreme rice and beans frugality to purely living in the moment, we hit a wall.
You trigger what we can call a mathematical hangover. The opportunity cost of missing out on early investments is not something you can just work harder to fix later in life.
Because of compound interest, which, let's be honest, human beings are incredibly bad at conceptualizing.
We really are. We think linearly. If I save $1 today, I have $1. If I save another tomorrow, I have 2.
We don't naturally understand exponential avalanches.
Precisely. Let's look at the exact math from the source. Assume you take $5,000 and put it into an account earning a moderate 4% interest rate.
Okay, $5,000 at 4%.
If you walk away, touch nothing, and add $0 to it, in 1 year, you have $5,200.
Which feels slow. It's like, cool, $200.
But in 20 years, just by leaving it alone, that initial $5,000 has more than doubled to $10,955.
That is the baseline magic of free money for doing absolutely nothing.
Right, but look what happens when you introduce even a tiny amount of friction into your current spending to fund the future.
Okay, what happens?
If you manage to add just $100 a month to that same account, that's $25 a week after 20 years, you don't just have an extra $24,000.
Right, because the new money is compounding too.
Exactly. The compounding effect means you end up with over $46,000.
Wait, really? From just $100 a month?
$100 a month. If you lean so hard into soft saving in your 20s and 30s that you miss that specific window of time, the opportunity cost is immense.
Wow. You cannot get those decades back no matter how much you try to save in your 50s.
No, you can't. And it's not merely about missing out on future gains either. It's about surviving the present without triggering a catastrophe.
Right, which brings up Michael Benoist's perspective in the source material. He highlights the immediate visceral danger here. Soft saving without a safety net is perilous.
Very. He points out that it only takes one unexpected event, a sudden layoff, a medical injury, or even just a broken transmission on a work truck, to completely vaporize a checking account.
And when that baseline checking account is wiped out, the lack of an emergency fund forces people into the most toxic financial instrument available, which is high-interest credit card debt.
Yes. And once you are trapped in a cycle of paying 25% annual percentage yields just to keep your head above water, the resulting stress completely obliterates the very mental health you were trying to protect.
Which introduces a massive paradox in this entire wellness-driven financial model.
How so?
Well, the idea that spending money inherently equals self-care is fundamentally flawed. If prioritizing a temporary experience causes long-term financial strain, it is just self-sabotage with better marketing.
That is so true.
Imagine going on this incredibly expensive, immersive wellness retreat in Bali to center yourself and de-stress, but you finance the entire trip on a credit card.
Oh, no.
Right. It is physiologically impossible to actually relax and meditate on that beach if your subconscious is actively agonizing over how you are going to pay the bill when you land back home.
The financial anxiety actively neutralizes the wellness.
Exactly. The strain undermines the cure.
And this is exactly where Shalito warns about the social media illusion. There's a critical distinction to be made in the motivation behind the spending.
You have to ask yourself why you're actually buying it.
Right. You have to ask, are you booking that bucket list flight because it deeply aligns with your personal values and enriches your life? Or are you financing it strictly for the adrenaline hit and the social validation of posting it on Instagram?
Oof. That is an uncomfortable mirror to look into for a lot of people. It's the difference between buying an experience and buying a prop for a photograph.
Overspending, driven by social comparison, leaves you in the worst possible position, financially leveraged and emotionally empty.
Because you get the momentary spike of dopamine from the likes. followed by the crushing, sustained anxiety of the debt.
Exactly. So we are navigating between two heavily flawed extremes here.
Right. The old school FIRE movement is too restrictive. You're basically eating stale Halloween candy 40 years from now.
And pure, unadulterated soft saving is too risky. You eat all the candy today, get a huge stomach ache, and have absolutely nothing left for tomorrow.
So how does someone listening to this actually walk the middle path? How do you implement the mental health benefits of soft saving without accidentally destroying your future stability?
The framework Brie Sholito suggests relies on establishing what she calls intentional guardrails.
Intentional guardrails, okay.
You are absolutely allowed to soft save, but you cannot just operate on impulse. You have to implement rules that protect you from yourself.
Honestly, rules usually sound like deprivation to me, but these actually sound like they authorize you to spend.
Yeah.
What is the first guardrail?
The non-negotiable first step is building the emergency fund. This is the buffer between you and the broken work truck or the sudden medical bill.
It ensures that a bump in the road doesn't become a massive financial crater.
Precisely. Once that cash reserve is sitting in an accessible account, you move to step 2. You pay your future self first.
Which means automating the process before you even have a chance to look at the money, right?
Automation is key because it removes the psychological friction. You set up a direct transfer to a high-yield savings account, or you ensure your retirement contributions are pulled straight from your paycheck.
And the amount doesn't have to be the extreme 50% that the FIRE movement demanded.
No, not at all. It just has to be a consistent, meaningful percentage that aligns with compound interest, like that $100 a month we talked about earlier.
And then the third step is where the soft saving actually happens.
The third step is liberation. Whatever cash is left over in your checking account after the bills are paid, the emergency fund is secure and the future self is funded. That money is yours.
You can spend it completely guilt-free.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You want to buy the $7 artisanal coffee every morning? Buy it. You want to book the weekend trip to the mountains? Book it. Because you have already satisfied the math.
I look at these intentional guardrails exactly like the bumpers at a bowling alley.
Oh, I like that.
You know, when you are a kid, or even just an adult who wants to have fun without stressing, you put the bumpers up in the gutters. You still get to throw the ball however you want.
You can put your own spin on it, bounce it off the sides.
Yeah, you still get to hang out with your friends and enjoy the game. But the bumpers guarantee that you will not accidentally throw your entire turn or your entire financial future into the gutter.
You are mathematically guaranteed to hit at least some of the pins.
Exactly. That physical constraint creates psychological freedom. You don't have to agonize over the trajectory of every single throw or every single dollar because the system protects you.
And maintaining that system requires adopting a concept called financial seasons.
Seasons.
Yeah. We are traditionally taught to view a budget as a static, permanent document etched in stone. But Sholito suggests a much more fluid reality.
Because our lives aren't static.
Right. It is perfectly acceptable to enter a season where you prioritize heavy spending on travel or a season where you take a lower-paying job to prioritize career flexibility.
So your budget shouldn't be static either. You can have a season of heavy spending followed intentionally by a season of aggressive saving.
The critical mechanism making that work, though, is the review process. You have to reevaluate your guardrails every 6 to 12 months.
That makes sense. As you change, as your income changes, and as the macroeconomic world changes, your rules have to adapt.
Because if you skip the review process, you inevitably fall victim to lifestyle creep.
Lifestyle creep is so insidious because it doesn't happen all at once.
It sneaks up on you.
It really does. You get a promotion, your paycheck goes up by a few $100s a month, and you think you're doing great. And suddenly you stop buying generic paper towels and switch to the premium brand.
You start taking Ubers instead of walking or taking the subway.
You upgrade your phone a year earlier than you actually needed to. And 12 months later, you look at your accounts and realize that despite the raise, you aren't saving a single dollar more than you were before.
The money just evaporated into slightly nicer versions of everyday things. You absorb the new income into your baseline without actively choosing to do so.
Avoiding lifestyle creep really requires ruthless intentionality. You have to actively cut back in the areas of your life that do not serve your core values, so that when new money arrives, it has a specific purpose.
Exactly. If the premium paper towels genuinely bring a spark of joy to your daily life, keep them. But if you don't actually care, cut them out.
The ultimate goal of the middle path isn't to see how aggressively you can save, nor is it to see how carelessly you can spend. The goal is intentional alignment.
You are carefully calibrating your present-day joy against your future stability.
Which brings us entirely back to you, listening to this right now. The next time you open your banking app, take a hard look at the story your transactions are telling.
What are those numbers saying about your priorities?
Exactly. Are you operating out of a place of fear, hoarding every penny for a future you might be too exhausted to enjoy? Or are you operating out of social pressure, funding a lifestyle on credit just to keep pace with an algorithmic highlight reel?
Look at those statements and ask yourself, where can you build your emergency fund? Where can you automate paying your future self?
Where do you need to install those bowling alley bumpers today so you can finally spend the rest of your money without the creeping anxiety?
And as you analyze those guardrails, consider the broader implications of what we've discussed.
Where does this lead us?
Well, if soft saving teaches us that the future is inherently unpredictable and that we must view our finances as a series of fluid, adaptable seasons rather than a rigid march toward a finish line, how might this completely redefine the concept of retirement itself?
Oh, wow. Because we've always treated retirement like a cliff you jump off.
A hard stop at age 65. But if we adopt a sustainable approach that prioritizes well-being throughout our entire timeline, the future of work might not be a grueling 40-year marathon followed by total inactivity.
What would it look like instead?
It might look more like a series of planned, intentional mini-sabbaticals integrated throughout our 30s, 40s, and 50s.
Mini sabbaticals, that is fascinating.
Imagine taking 6 months away from your career to travel, rest, or explore a passion, then returning to the workforce refreshed and doing it again a decade later.
It fundamentally shifts the objective from waiting for a distant finish line to actively reclaiming your time while you still possess the physical health and vitality to truly experience it.
Exactly. It's a whole new way to play the game.
That reframing completely changes everything. It means you don't have to leave the Halloween candy hidden under the bed for decades until it turns to dust. You get to intentionally enjoy the best pieces every single year with the mathematical confidence of knowing there will still be plenty left for later. Look at those bank statements, install your guardrails, and keep questioning the script you were handed. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We will catch you next time.